So I want to talk a little bit today about how I design. I'm not a pastelist, although I must say I've looked at your website. There's a lot of very talented people out here. But I'm an oil painter, and I use the water-soluble paint. So I'm an ambassador for Royal Talens. So they make Rembrandt oils, Rembrandt pastels. They make this Cobra paint, and because I'm an ambassador, I know a lot about how it's made up of and everything. And it's actually real oil paint. Some people think it's not, but it's oil paint. It takes just as long to dry as traditional paint. But anyway, what I'm talking about today more is how I design my paintings and put a lot of figures in them. So I'm going to start a demo, and I don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to start a demo. I'm going to talk a little bit. I don't know if any of you add figures to your paintings or not. But there's something that I always teach that a lot of people don't know, and I'm going to pass this around. So when you're, I guess I can hold it up here. Yeah. When you're painting figures, their heads always line up. If you're standing and they're standing, your heads will always line up. So sometimes people don't believe that, but it's true. Unless you're standing on top of a building or sitting or laying on the ground. So a lot of times when people make figures in the distance, they look like they're going up in the air. So this will alleviate that. And I brought a painting along, because this is the farmer's market in Santa Fe. And you can see how all the heads line up. The person in the front, his head lines up with the person way back here. It's just that their feet get longer. So that's just kind of a rough example of what I'm talking about. And
Michelle, is that because your eyes are, that's where your eyes
so believe it or not, our eyes are, eye level is the horizon line. And if you're at the ocean and people are standing up, their eyes are always at the level of the ocean. We don't have that luxury here to be near the ocean, but they always line up unless like you're on top of a building or you're down below. So that's something to always keep in mind. So one thing I want to talk about today is how I design my paintings. Like this one just has one figure, but this was in Mexico. I designed it so these boats come up and point to the figure. This pink building comes down, points to the figure. The wall comes across, points to the figure. This wall, even the trees I make bend down so they point to the figure. So I'm always, if you put a figure in your painting, it's always going to be the, this is where people are going to look because it's a figure. So I always try to design my paintings so that everything makes sure I go to the figure. So I'm going to start a demo, and I worked on this yesterday. I'm kind of a last-minute person, but so I'm going to pass these around. So what you can see is this is in Taos, and it's a photo I took, but it wasn't quite the way I wanted it. So on the other side is how I photoshopped it to look like I want it to look. And I made it so the shadows point down to this figure. I even made the clouds come down to bring your eye down here. I made it lighter around him and him dark. And then this sunlight comes across. So everything is designed to make you look at him.
Can you flip it back to the original?
Yeah, the original one was, I made the buildings taller, I changed the clouds. I made this really light inside as opposed to dark. But because I used to be a graphic designer, I'm pretty good at Photoshop. So then I took a grid, and this is Dynamic Symmetry, and I studied it a couple years ago, and if you put some of these grids on top of like a Leonardo da Vinci, Gustav Klimt, like hundreds of artists, they go right in that grid. And I don't know if they just intuitively design things that way or if they use grids. But I do know that Van Gogh used a grid because he wrote a letter to his brother and he taped wires on the back of his canvas. And he said, when I go out in the light and paint, I can see the grid through the canvas, and that's how I design my paintings. So even Van Gogh used the grid. So I'm not like totally, like when I go out in plein air paint, sometimes I use the grid, sometimes I don't. But it's still in my brain where the grid goes. And if you go to my website, I have some free, I have a YouTube channel that has some free talks about why I use dynamic symmetry. And it's been around forever. There's a book on the step there that you can buy real cheap online. And then there's a book on perspective And those are two things that I've just studied a lot because I've been doing plein air competitions since 2006, and it wasn't until 2016, after I took this class on dynamic symmetry, that I started winning awards because people like my design. So it does make a difference, and so that's what I'm here to show you today. So I'm going to pass around, let's see which one was that, this photo, which is my photo that I'm going to paint from. And then this one, which shows you the grid. So you can just pass them around. Thanks. So while I'm painting, I don't know if I can get that up here. No. Just trying to figure out how you can see it. But, I'll try to hold it up. So, what's also nice, have you ever gridded a drawing up to paint from? Like I think we did that in high school. This is basically the same thing, but it makes the drawing a whole lot easier. So I'm just going to start. I already have this grid on, and what it is just, it's a cross through the middle, and then, okay, so there's something called, this is the mother rectangle, so it's your rectangle. And then if you took it and turned it sideways, the same proportion of this is this rectangle. And I know it sounds really confusing. So all this really is the mother rectangle with the daughter with X's through the middle. So I know it sounds really simple, and it's not that simple, but once you get to know it, it's pretty easy.
Could you say it again? I'm sorry, the mother with the daughter what?
Okay, so this is the mother rectangle.
Okay.
If I would turn this sideways and shrink it down, this part would be the daughter rectangle. It's the same proportion as this.
It's basically the golden mean.
Yeah, so if you put a bunch of these together, it would form the golden spiral. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, you can type in dynamic symmetry on YouTube, and there'll be more than you can even think about. But so I'm going to just show you how I designed this one. And then after I designed this one, I decided that it should have another person. So I just kind of scribbled in this second person, their heads would line up, but her feet will be lower because she's closer to us.
Maybe you could use the clip that you have for the garbage bag.
Maybe. Well, that kind of works, but I don't know if I can move over a little bit. There. You can kind of see it all now, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to get started. So I usually just start with transparent oxide red and a little green. So let's see. If anybody has any questions, you can just ask me while I'm painting. I don't mind.
Are you starting with your darks first?
Yes, I always do like an underpainting, and I keep it transparent colors, which are transparent oxide red and meridian, or ultramarine, or something that's transparent. So I want to, oh, and I also forgot to show you. So I also did a value study last night. So see how all the darks kind of come around and bring your eye around the painting. I learned this from C.W. Mundy, to always have your corners darker. So it's kind of like a vignette then. If all your corners are darker, it'll bring your eye towards your focal point. They won't go flying off the page, your eye. So I usually start kind of messy with lots of water and just kind of block in where the shadows are going to be. I love the shadow on the wall, how it kind of goes around the funky adobe there. And I might even make the shadow come up here a little bit.
And you said there's a water soluble oil.
Yes. And they're really nice because my whole life I had a studio in my house, and I didn't like smelling the turpentine. So I switched to these, and I really like them. I'm going to be doing a demo at Artisan with Royal Talens coming up, but I'm not sure when exactly, but I'll have that on my website. So I get all the shadows and the darks in first. It's one thing I had a hard time when I moved here, that I painted a lot of New York City buildings, and they're all straight up and down. So the first thing I went to paint was La Trompes, the church in Massachusetts. And it was like, oh, wow. And then the color of the adobe, I've been working on that for quite some time, but not sure I got that yet. But it's fun and it's challenging, for sure.
Is there a specific reason you went with the yellow underpainting?
I do that sometimes, but to be honest, this time it was the only size I had. This size, I wanted to bring this size so you could see it. I didn't know it was going to be projected, and I see there's a glare there, but sometimes I put underpaintings on and sometimes I don't. But I do like to do it pretty often. Mostly I do it when I get out on location. And there's also fun tools I use a lot, but I'm not sure where they are, like scrapers and things. Thought I brought that. So basically I'm drawing with my paper towel, like the woman is going to be in here. And I want to get the man down. So let's see. This comes across.
Do you have certain canvases you like better to use?
Yeah, I like Centurion linen. Like they make panels and stretch. This is a stretched one. And I love arches. A lot of my paintings have arches in them. I think it's from painting in France, and there's a lot of arches here too. So the man, so I designed him. So basically with the dynamic symmetry, wherever the wherever the lines meet, it creates like an energy point. So that's where you want to put like your focal points where the lines meet. And then diagonals are always your friend because they bring your eye, like this diagonal is going to bring you to him, this diagonal to him, all of them. It's like all of these diagonals are pointing to the figure. And he's going to be right here. Somewhere around there. So I just put him in very simply to start. And then the woman, she's on this other point. She's going to be right here. So, and another thing, I know when I used to do a lot of plein air paintings, I used to always think, oh, I have to make that exactly the way it looks. But you don't have to. You can move the mountain where you want it to be. You can move this where you want it to be. I made these a lot taller than they are so I could expand on the shadows. And this woman I'm going to add. And this is actually a window on the painting, but I'm going to make it a door. So it looks like she's coming out of the door. I think that would be a little more interesting. So she's going to be there. And, I can just kind of draw in a little bit with my fingernail. I paint a lot with my fingernail too, just to indicate things. And I don't know if any of you put people in your paintings, but it does definitely create a focal point. Okay, so, and I'm constantly squinting to make sure I have the drawing correct. And I took, on the original photograph there was a big sign here and a big sign here, but I think I'd rather keep it more simple. Maybe I would add this sign, I'm not sure. I used to be a graphic designer and I used to be an illustrator, and my paintings had every detail on earth. Like you could almost count the leaves. I forgot to bring my New York City book, but you could actually count the leaves on my paintings. And then when I started plein air painting, I got looser. And then when I started using a palette knife, I got looser. So now I'm doing brush and knife, but so anyway, that's kind of the basic drawing of it.
When you go plein air painting, what size canvas do you normally use?
Different sizes. 12 by 16 is my favorite, probably. Like that was a plein air, that's 9 by 12. This was plein air in Mexico. It's 11 by 14. But even this one, you can see how the flag, that's the Mexican flag, points down to the man. You know, and these trees probably weren't really there, but I made them bring your eye over to the guy and see how all their heads line up. Even though he's closer, their heads all line up. So plein air, 12 by 16, I've already done a 30 by 40 outside, but it was a little crazy.
As long as the wind doesn't come up.
Yeah, exactly.
Or the bugs visit the canvas.
Yeah, the realism.
So like on the photograph, there's this big white sign. I wouldn't make that white, you know, I'll make that, I don't even know if I'll put it in there, but it won't be white because that's too distracting. So let's see. So generally, if I'm outside, I'll spend pretty much time on this part of the painting because I want to get it correct, you know. So when I go outside, I take, you know, a viewfinder. I'm sure you've all seen these viewfinders. But then I made my own. I made this one probably before I learned the grid system. But it has just a basic grid in it. But I would draw that grid on my canvas and then stand outside. And it really, really helped me with perspective and drawing buildings. So I also made one. I didn't bring it with me. But it has this grid on it. So if I'm going to Paris in the beginning of June, and you know, they got buildings everywhere and cafes, so I'll take the grids because it'll help me get my drawing correct. Because you don't want to do a drawing. Did you ever go out and plein air paint and you have the drawing and it's on there, but you wished it would have been a little bit higher up, but you just painted anyway because you did all that time drawing. But that's not. That's why I do this until I can stand back and squint and visualize the. So what I don't like about this is that he's kind of in the middle of the arch, and I don't want him to be in the middle, so it makes me realize that the arch should be over here more. So I have that not correct. So I moved it over a little bit, and maybe a little smaller too. And then back there's a window as well. So he looks kind of like a bowling pin right now, but I will give him more of a shape. I usually typically make my figures bigger than they really are, and then I'll take my fingernail and give him a little more, he will look better. So I'll probably finish this and put it on my website, or maybe I'll send it to somebody here that can post it, I don't know, but that's how I start them, and that's my design process. And that's how I think about it all. And then, of course, the clouds are going to be, so if I make the clouds dark over here, that's not really the right color, but then the light on this chimney will pop out more. So I paint two different ways. Some ways I just attack it with the palette knife. And sometimes I do an underpainting of the colors, and then I go over it with a knife because I know what I need to match. So right now I'm just kind of basically trying to rough in where the colors are going to be of the sky. I don't know, how many of you in here are oil painters as well? I know a lot of people are. Yeah, pretty many? Okay. I did use pastels, I don't know, in my 30s, I guess, for portraits, but I don't think I was very good at it. So if I mix up a little bit of a violet color, I like to make violet using Viridian and alizarin, basically, is what it is. If you mix that together, it seems like green and red wouldn't make violet, but it makes a more subtle violet that I like better. So that's the dark of the clouds. Because I don't want the clouds to be too light that they take away from this. This is where my lightest light is going to be. So the clouds won't be that super white, but they'll be lighter. That's just kind of roughing it in. And then it's that Adobe color. That's always a tough one. I know somebody told me when I first moved here, I had a student that said that Irby Brown, you all know who he is, right? Yes. He said to mix Viridian and orange. And I was like, really? So I actually started doing that. It's Viridian and orange and then lots of other colors, but you can get some type of Adobe. So I'm going to try that right now. I would say a lot more orange than Viridian. I think it's like the hardest thing to mix on earth. So generally I put the darks in first. So I'm going to add some of that violet to the Adobe color. And just see what that looks like. It looks pretty yucky. So I use this color called primary magenta, and I guess it's kind of like quinacridone rose or something like that, but it's pretty punchy, and I really like that with orange, just to make things a little more colorful. So I think I like that more on the orange pinkish side. I don't know if you can, are you really seeing a glare over there, aren't you? Yeah. Mm. Well, I can't help you. I don't know how to get rid of the glare, but do I have a lot of time left? I don't know.
Yeah.
25 minutes.
Oh, that's pretty much. Okay. Does anybody have any questions? just put a lot of color down and mix it until I like it. Even though I plan out my design, I'm not methodical at all with the way I paint. It changes all the time. So.
So you plan out your design, but your colors are kind of whatever you're feeling about that painting at the time.
Pretty much, yeah. Like I might have an idea of what I want to paint and it doesn't turn out anything like that, but I'm sure you've all had that happen. So generally I have a palette that's this whole thing, but I'm not using that. Okay, so now I kind of established kind of what I think that's going to look like. I want to make it more violet, but
Do the colors dry exactly as you put them on?
no, that's what a lot of people think because it's water mixable paint. It dries like acrylics, but it won't be dry till next week. You know, it's oil paint.
Oh.
Yeah. It's just that you can mix water with it.
But the color stays the same as it dries?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Like I think acrylics dries darker. Okay, so now I'm going to try to get that color back there, the lighter color. I'm even getting a glare on my paint. So I teach a lot of classes on how for people to loosen up, you know. That's what I was teaching in Florida. And I always tell people, like, don't paint like this. And I had this one student that he just, every time I'd come around, it'd be like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, sorry. So if I hold it loose like this, I don't have as much control, which is good, I think, but. So I think I like it pinkish back there and then maybe violet here and orange there. And I love those chimneys.
Did you say you use the palette knife for the finish work?
Yeah, once I get the colors established, then I'll go over it with the knife sometimes. So I use a combination, really. My paintings used to be super thick palette knife, but now I'm kind of tired of that. And painting more, like, you know, if I go like this. Once there's thick paint down there, then you can do really fun things with the knife. What I like most about it is that if I don't mix the paint real well and put on thick paint, it gets like striations through it. You really can't see that, can you? I wonder if that's a little better, huh?
Yeah, it's better.
It's not as focused, but it's not as glary. Okay. So yeah, what I love about the knife is some of the magical things it does on its own, like Bob Ross would say, happy accidents, you know, like sometimes, I remember one time I was doing this big white, it's like a mill, a grist mill in Pennsylvania, and I kept going over it and over it and over it, and sometimes I used like spatulas that are really thick, and I kept going over it, and somehow the bottom got some orange, and I went like that, and I was like, oh, that's perfect, you know, like, so I always tell my students, like, sometimes they paint too fast with the knife, and I say, just put the stroke down and look at it, because sometimes it does magical things, and you don't know it right away. So the one time that I was doing that, I was like, oh, I love that orange, you know. Then I wouldn't touch that part of the painting for the rest of the day, but it pretty much stayed there. So that's why I like going over and over things, because when you come up later, you can look at, there's a lot of striations in there, and I live in an old adobe house, and I know the walls are crooked, and yeah, so when I bought my house, there were 3 things I wanted. I wanted high ceilings, vigas, and a fireplace, and I didn't get any of them. But I did get an old adobe building with lots of problems. But I love it. Yeah. Okay, so now I'm going to try to put in some of the lights. There's this one color that I really like. I think it's Naples Yellow Light. And just straight out of the tube, it looks like that, which is kind of good. But I think I want it to be a little pinkish. So even here I'll do more atmospheric perspective. Like I'll make it more pink on this side and then lighter here, because the lightness will bring you over that way. So I think that's a pretty good color. And then back here, I want that to be, you know how when things get farther away they get bluer and lighter. In fact, I just went to the light show next door, and they had a quote by Leonardo da Vinci, and it said, if I'm doing 5 buildings, the first ones are the color, the second ones have more blue and more white to them, the third ones have more blue and more white, farther one have lots more white. And it's like, oh yeah, I know that. So I thought that was interesting. So what I'm trying to say is this archway behind it will be like a bluish white, probably, because it's really far away, and it'll make this guy really pop. So it'll be the lightest light against the darkest dark is where your eye looks, and so he's the focal point. And normally I wouldn't be jumping into this so soon, but for a demo I will. And then my favorite color is teal blue. So I'm going to have that on the doorway and some of it around here. Maybe I'll even make that a teal blue door. I think I will. Yeah. It is my favorite color, so. So that's just that pure yeah, so I'm just trying to get the values correct. And Cobra came out with a new color called Emerald Green, and it makes a really good teal, but I didn't bring it with me. So otherwise, I can use lemon yellow and this primary cyan. So let's see, just for fun, how that looks. It's a little, might be too green. But I love doing doors and windows, because what I like to do is just put a lot of paint on the back of my knife and maybe not mix it perfectly. And then I use a big knife, but if I scrape off the bottom part of it, it's a small knife because there's only paint on that tip. But I like the bigger ones because they're more flexible. The little ones are stiff and they just kind of scratch rather than paint. So like, if I was ready for the door right now, which I shouldn't be yet, but I would lay it down almost flat and just kind of drag it across like that. And then, you know, maybe go back again. But what I like is all the little striations in there because it's not mixed perfectly. When I was in high school, they told me that I can't be an artist for a living, that I should be an architect. So they made me take a mechanical drawing with all the boys. And what I learned was perspective. I learned that I don't want to be an architect. I want to be a poor artist, but I did learn perspective really well. So that's one of the yellow book I have down there. If you want to learn perspective, it's an older book. It has large print and lots of photographs. It's easy to read, and the first 3/4 of it are really good. Then he gets into too many details, but. Okay, so I'm going to just keep moving along because I know I don't have much time, but. I just want to basically get the general colors. Now this I don't want being very bright because it's in the shade. And I think I'm going to try to make this somehow look like cobblestone. I'm not sure how yet. But in the photograph, this wall is pretty light. But I'll make it a little darker than that because I don't want it to jump out at you. But it's kind of more pink. And it has these funky adobe things. And the bush here is really dark, so I wouldn't make it that dark. But generally when I make greens, I use ultramarine and yellow ochre, which I don't even have out. Oops. I'm pretty much of a messy painter, but I can't help it. That's too green. So I always put maybe a little bit of red into the green to calm it down a little bit. I have a Viridian on my palette, on my supply list for when I teach. And somebody always comes to class and mixes Viridian for their trees. And you all know what Viridian is, kind of like icky, tacky. It's like I don't know any trees that are that color. So now my first thing I say when I teach is Viridian's on your palette, but don't use it to mix green. And that sounds like counterintuitive, but it's not for greens. So anyway, I won't make that as dark as it is on the photo, because photographs really kind of take the color out of everything, and I don't like it kind of looks like a snow cone. So I think I'd rather just maybe make it a little more, or maybe when I get to that part, I'll put like some kind of branch coming up, making it just a little more interesting. But, how much time do I have now?
10 minutes.
Okay.
I think you can go a little bit over since you started somewhat late.
Thank you. I did start pretty late. Okay, so that's the sunlight there. And then there's some sunlight on the front of that building. Does anybody have any other questions?
Pardon me?
Any other questions?
Do you tend to, like the colors you just used on the bush on the right, do you tend to do this, people tend to do a color harmony thing where I gotta add that green somewhere else?
Oh yeah, I do. Like probably, I don't know about I think there'll be some kind of little bit of tree up there. But like the teal, I like to repeat it. So maybe she'll be carrying a basket that has some kind of teal in it. So yeah, yes, the answer to that is yes, yes.
Thank you.
And even red, I could make him have a red shirt on. That would really make him the focal point, but I'm not sure if I want to do that. But
Do you paint every day?
I try to. I took a road trip to Florida, and I taught in Jupiter and Naples and Key West and Apalachicola. So I was painting every day, and they were. I was getting kind of loose and wild. But, so when I brought them home, I was like, "Oh wow, that's kind of crazy." Some of them I sanded down, but I didn't paint yesterday because I had to get ready for today. But you know, I try to, but, it's, how life gets in the way. So like here, there's a little top of a building there that the sun's just hitting it a little bit. I like that. And then also this, this is kind of wild. Here it goes down, and then over. Like sometimes the paint gets too thick, like that is kind of thick and not correct. And then I'll go back with my knife and kind of carve it and move it up. Same as where the light hits the chimney over here. I really like that edge. So those kind of things really show the light, which it's too early to be doing that, but I'm doing it anyway. I do actually like all this texture. I don't know if it makes sense, but I like it. I have this habit when I'm plein air painting. Like I think I brought the painting. It's not necessarily a good habit, but this was in Key West, and I'm painting it. It's a famous coffee shop, and a rooster sits up there, and there's a rooster down there. Oh, I gotta put that in. Oh, there goes the brush. I gotta put that in. So I put in like everything but the kitchen sink, and I'm deciding if I want to scrape it down or not because it's might be a little too thick. I don't know. But that's what happens when I'm out painting. So.
Michelle was in Open Studios last year too.
Oh yeah. The Santa Fe studio tour. But I can't do it this year because I'm going to be in Paris. But oh darn! See, like that texture, I really like that. And I just put a lot of darks that happened to be on my palette. I'm good friends with Kathy Anderson. She's a pretty famous floral painter. And she was really good friends with Richard Schmid. So I got to paint with, who Richard Schmid is? I got to paint with him a couple times. And I was trying to paint a white tablecloth with a white base on it. And he goes, just scrape up all the colors on your palette, make a nice gray, and that'll be the white tablecloth. And I was like, wow. So that's one thing I do is I scrape together my colors when I'm finished and save them for the next day.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, okay.
How long will your paint stay usable?
A couple days, yeah. Yeah, it dries. I wish it dried faster, to be honest, but it's just like oil paint.
Are there dryers you could use if you wanted to?
Well, I haven't found one that I like, because most of the dryers make it thin. But there's something that Winsor Newton makes called oleopasto. It's really stinky and toxic, but if I'm outside and I mix it with my white, it'll make the painting dry like in a day. But what I like about the knife is like I can put things down, and if I don't like them, I can scrape them off. And oops, like that blue, that doesn't belong there, so I can scrape it off.
When you say scrape them off, you can take all the color out?
Not all of it, but most of it, yeah. And then like for that painting, if I decide to scrape it down, I have a carbide tip professional, like house painters thing, and it scrapes off all the lumps, and then I sand it. And okay, so like here there's some kind of windows that I just want to indicate, but just by putting one line down there, it indicates a window without a lot of details. And I kind of shook on that second one and messed it up, but I can just go back then and, like if I wanted to take that off, I can take it off. So it's a lot of painting and scraping and painting and scraping until I get the way I like it. Like I really try to hold really still, ask the painting angels to help me out, and then give it a thing, and hopefully it's straight. So it looks like it's crooked. So anyway, that's kind of how I paint. And if you want to take a workshop, I have openings in 2 weeks. I have a very small class, and I'm teaching indoors how to paint figures, and kind of what I'm talking about today. But there's flyers right there. And then one in September is plein air, teaching a plein air class where we're just going to go out and paint my favorite places in Santa Fe. So anyway, I guess I'll stop. Is it 12? Okay.
Michelle,
Yes.
when you're finished a painting, and I'm assuming that you varnish or put a glaze on it, do you have a preference if you go gloss or matte?
That's a good question. I don't know anybody that knows that answer. Like, I've tried all kinds of varnishes. A lot of times I don't even varnish them because, like, if I sold some in Florida that, they just don't get varnished. But Cobra, for some reason, dries kind of shiny, so they don't look like they need it. But if I have a painting long enough and I do have time to varnish it, I've been using the spray Kmart varnish. Do you know what that is? It's just I do it outside and I wear a mask. Because I've tried the Soluvar, that's like a paint-on varnish. And I've tried all kinds of things, and I don't know the answer yet. So right now, Kmart is a retouch varnish, so it'll protect it, but it's not like really a final varnish. Yeah.
So you're basically saying you don't always need the varnishing.
I don't know. By the time they peel off, I'll be long gone. So. But I mean, I paint the correct way, where you paint thin, like this was water, and then it gets thicker, and then as it gets thicker and more oily, you're supposed to paint, fat over lean. So I mean, I do all that, but yeah. Any other questions?
When you were working, did you work for an agency or freelance?
Oh, I never really worked. I mean, no. I've been working on my own since 1983, like right out of college. I was a graphic designer for a little bit, and then I was a freelance graphic designer.
That's what I was
Yes, yeah. I worked for Chilton Publishing and Arco Chemical, and I did a lot of cartoons and a lot of design, and so a lot of people say since I was a graphic designer, I know how to design. And I think we all kind of know how to design intuitively a little bit. Like when you look through your camera, you make sure you have a nice design before you click the button, right? Mm-hmm. I think we all do that. So the grids just kind of help me. I mean, a lot of times if I'm outside painting and I have my grid on the canvas, I'll just move it around and go, oh, I'm going to put the edge of that cliff right on that line. And then I know where to start. And then kind of it's just a starting point, but like I said, it's always kind of in the back of my mind. But the main thing is to have angles that bring you in, and stuff that most of us know. But
do you use Photoshop to adjust the perspective on the buildings?
Yeah.
So do you ever offer classes on how to do that?
Photoshop. I could. Oh, but you know what else is good? I just learned this today. Do you have Photoshop, like the real Photoshop?
I have Elements.
Okay.
I don't know if it'll do the same.
No, I think it does. It's amazing. I mean, like, I don't know if I can show you. But there's another program, if you have an iPad, like I made this black and white in Photoshop, but we could do that on our phones. And that was when I Photoshopped it. But also another program that's really good that I've been using, I do mentorship, so people send me their paintings, and then I put them in Procreate, and I show them how I would fix them. So Procreate's a really good...
It's cheap.
I think it's free, isn't it? Like I added that woman in from a different photo, and I really like her. And I can do a lot on there. But you can put layers in there. So if you think you want Procreate, it looks like that one. It's like a symbol. I think it's free.
No, it's $20
a year.
Really cheap.
Yeah. Yeah. So I have.
Did you say Procreate?
It's Procreate, but
There's also Procreate Dreams, which is animation.
I don't know that one. But that's a good idea. Maybe I'll teach a Photoshop workshop, because I've been doing Photoshop since I learned the computer, whatever year that was, I don't know. So I know, I mean, there's a million things you can do, but I know the basics, and I'm pretty good at it, so.
Do you have Photoshop on your iPhone?
No. They do have some kind of photo thing on there, but I do it on my computer. But I also have a pen, this pen goes in Procreate, and I can draw things on it, so it's... I mean, it is helpful to know Photoshop, because I can put the grids on top of my paintings and then print them out. And
If you don't want to spend a small fortune for even Photoshop elements or go on a subscription, there's a Photoshop, it's pretty close to Photoshop, it's called Affinity Photo.
Yeah.
And it's around, I think it's gone up to around $60, but it's a one-shot cost, and it does a lot of, most of what Photoshop does. There's some filters that are not in Photoshop. I mean, there's some filters in Photoshop that are not in Affinity Pro that are really nice, but otherwise, it's a very Photoshop-like program.
Okay.
It's incredibly inexpensive.
because I have the real Photoshop, and it's $10 a month. So it used to be part of the computer, but it's not anymore. So, but yeah. Any other questions about anything? So I have brochures and business cards up there. If you have a question about the grids, I send them to people. If you have Photoshop, you can just put it on top of there. And there's a million different grids. I'm trying to simplify them a little bit. And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.